Yeah, direct misfire, aiming up hits. Bend some spoon and sell liquor in the mix. Follow along, stay up to date. Comment, like, subscribe today.
Hello champs, and welcome once again to another Direct Misfire Missive. Joining me today, as always, is Selic.
Hey.
As well as Hugh.
Howdy.
And special guest, Mr. Mastercrafted himself, Kyle Pretzel.
What's going on?
As we spill the beans on more 3rd edition news. So pull up a seat, grab a drink, and let's get into it. But before we get into all that juicy gossip, we need to add on to our Cloud Giant army that we're building. So the results of the listener poll, what did we have? The Riders of the Storm took it last time.
53% Riders of the Storm. So it was a late charge by the giant Jai the Ant, but eventually the Riders of the Storm, 53%. Thanks for everyone that sort of went onto the Facebook to vote.
Poor giant
I tried to tell you guys, nostalgia is greater than puns.
Okay, so let's get into some monsters. We need to add some monsters because the giants don't have enough monsters, even though they're all giants. So what we've got is a Titan. So this is the giant of giants. This is bigger than the Colossal, so you can sell that one, Mantic. It has similar stats to the Colossal, but it's got a couple of changes, so it's not too OP. So because this guy's so large, he has trouble hitting small units. So whenever he's trying to hit a troop of infantry, he's at -1 to hit. But because he's so big, he's +1 to hit other Titan-class units. He also has quite a bit of heft, so this can be felt whenever he's walking about, and you can feel him coming across town. So when any unit without Strider that is within 3 inches of the Titan when it starts or ends its move becomes hindered and disordered. Because of all the shaky ground as he's clomping about. So that's the first one, that's Titan. Next, we have the Sky Serpent. It's something that lives in the clouds. I don't know. So it's a flying monster with mid-range stats, but he's shrouded in fog, so it's stealthy and also spits lightning, and that's in the form of 5 dice lightning attack. It also has the option to, when it wins a round of combat, to wrap itself around the enemy unit and hold it in place, and disallowing the disengage action, which will be introduced in the 3rd edition. The last one, we've got the Great Eye. So as the names might suggest, this is a floating eyeball wrapped in a storm cloud. It's pretty terrifying to behold, so it causes dread. It's also not very fast, so it shambles and flies because it's essentially an eyeball in a cloud. Speed of 6, it's got a breath attack, and it can also be affected by the giant's big breath special rule. And it's also got a 1-use only self-cast teleport spell, a blink, if you will, or maybe it's a wink because it's only a single eyeball. So that allows him to move to any position within 12 inch.
Okay.
So they're the choices: the Titan, the Sky Serpent, and the Great Eye. Kyle, seeing as you're our guest, how about you make the first vote? What would you like to see in this Cloud Giant army?
Oh man, I'm a fan of that blink or teleport that you got on there for sure.
The Great Eye.
Yeah, that's kind of terrifying personally.
Could be an interesting little modelling opportunity as well, I imagine. Big sucker of an eyeball. Get it some nice freehand on there.
Halloween eyeball and some cotton wool. There you go.
If anybody knows me, I like the creepy stuff.
Selic, what do you reckon?
Well, it's either the Great Eye, and I also like the Sky Serpent. So I think, just to disagree with Kyle, I'm going to go to the Sky Serpent. I like that it's going to sit back and sort of have a bit of lightning attacks as well, which I don't think we've got too much in this Cloud Giant army at the moment.
No, incorrect. The large ratkin friend, who is easily the best figure going around, he already flaps around shooting lightning, so we don't need another one of them.
Your demon spawn, right?
We need an even more giant.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the whole rules you did with him. I like how you're incorporating some of this 3rd edition business as well, just from a few. It's like you're looking for a job. You know Kyle can't give you a job in that, you know. You missed your opportunity.
Yeah, I know.
You should have asked Ronnie.
I can wish.
Yeah, give me the big giant. Lay some big giant meat on me.
Well, great. So we've got 1 vote for each of the things. That doesn't help me at all. Okay, so I didn't really feel it with the Sky Serpent because I just kind of thought that up on the fly. And I've been thinking about the Titan for a while, so I'm going to go with the Titan. Good job, Hugh.
I think that's like 4 in a row now, Hugh.
I always win, man. It's how Rat can roll.
All right, I gotta remember that for the next one. Okay, so we'll leave the Sky Serpent and Great Eye as the other options for the listeners to see if which they prefer to join the army.
That's it.
I don't think we'll be introducing any more monsters other than that because can't get too many, but 2 should be fine. Yeah, that'll do. So, well, what are we doing here? What were we talking about before?
Well,
I'm sure it's not important.
Okay. All right. So we'll see you next time.
no, less fictional 3rd edition stuff. I want some real gossip.
Ah, that's right.
Real gossip. Well, we haven't. We've managed to renegotiate with Kyle to get his kids taken to school a little earlier, I think it was. But eventually we got the US trade sales executive at Mantic Games to join us to talk a little bit about what's coming up in the 3rd edition. So it's pretty exciting stuff on this side. I know that, Kyle, you've been releasing your little army sneak peeks over on Mastercrafted.
Yeah, everything's planned at this point. I mean, it doesn't, I'm the official leaker.
A dubious title.
Of Mantic right now. So I get kind of nervous about that role because it's like, when do I say too much? When do I not say enough? And everyone's been kind of encouraging so far. I'm kind of hitting it right in that right sort of middle ground where you're getting tidbits, but you're not getting everything. So it's been fun.
So you're saying that it's going to be hard to get information out of you today?
I'll give you some stuff. you got to pump up the numbers on the podcast, right? Like that's
that's it. That's all it's about.
That's right. That's what pays the bills here at Mantic Australia HQ.
How's the excitement over there so far? That's my question. Is because I have a good pulse on the US, but I don't hear quite so much what's going on over there.
Yeah, so I would say that it's gone pretty well. So I think everyone's got into this certain stage where 2nd edition's still very much pumping, but as soon as 3rd edition started to get closer and closer, everyone gets paralyzed. So they don't actually want to model anymore, or they don't want to model too many things, purely because they're not sure if it's going to be there in a 3rd. And I'm hoping that our little conversation today will really help us out with that.
Sure.
Indeed. You want to get your hobby buzz going again because I find that we're getting a lot of momentum here in Melbourne, at least in Australia. And the tournaments are growing bigger and bigger each time. Even our little one-days and stuff are pulling a decent little crowd. So while the scene's growing, it's perfect time for the next edition to drop, provided it's good, of course.
Yes.
The danger is that we'll fizzle just as we're starting to fly. But I think there's very little likelihood of that given what we've seen so far. It's looking pretty cool.
But with all of this thing, so rules is one side, which is fine, but some of the models of, let's be honest, Mantic hasn't had the best models in the entire gaming systems, I would say, across all of the different companies. However, over the last couple of months, they have been releasing some beautiful, beautiful models. I think everyone would agree.
Yep.
What awesome miniatures have you got coming up? Have you got any Chaos Dwarfs?
I feel like you guys may have heard some things about the Abyssal Dwarves coming up.
Yes.
Yeah. We did a little bit of a teaser recently with some of the models that are coming up. And in Q1 of next year, essentially the rest of this year is going to be, we got Hellboy here in September, where the first expansion that's going straight to retail is coming out. And then everything, October, November, December is going to be Kings of War focused. So there will be releases in October, which is what we've seen so far. But then November's got a whole set of releases as well. And it's essentially more of the Northern Alliance army stuff that's going to be able to, like, you can pick it up. That's not just in the Mega Army or Army kit. So if you want just additional single kits, like if you want just ice elementals, you can pick them up, for example. After that, in December, there's a couple of things that we're looking at doing. The Armies of Panathor is probably the biggest that everyone's excited for. So we actually kind of made the decision to stick with the name Uncharted Empires. So it's going to be essentially Uncharted Empires, the Armies of Panathor. So it's developed a little bit of a brand, and that's going to stick to what everything is, so that way everyone knows, hey, this is the same set of armies, or at least similar, because we did move some back and forth from the main book or otherwise. And then Q1 is when a whole bunch of new Abyssal Dwarf things are coming out, or Chaos Dwarves, if you throw up in your mouth a little when you say it. Abyssal Dwarves have got a release schedule set for, essentially, we're going to do the same thing that we have been doing with all the new releases. So Vanguard is going to get kits for Abyssal Dwarves first.
Mhm.
So that'll be the first teasers that you kind of get to see for them. And there's a couple things in there that I think people are going to be pretty pleased with.
Berserkers?
We'll get there.
That's all I care about, Berserkers.
So in January in particular, the Vanguard stuff is going to be, the regular warband set, the regular booster set, and then there's going to be some reinforcement packs. The same thing that you're seeing with all the other lines right now. The bulk of that's going to be like the Black Souls, Decimators, that kind of thing. There'll probably be some Slave Orcs in there. For the first time, though, we're going to be looking at some Ratkin models that'll be a part of that as well. So,
Now you're speaking my language.
So wait a second. That was Ratkin in the Abyssal Dwarves.
Yeah.
Well, they are slaves, surely. Yeah.
Yes.
No. They're the masters. They're the true masters.
You obviously don't read the lore and the fluff, huh?
No, I've read that bit, but I just chose to redact it. I presume it'd be redacted in the 3rd edition rulebook as well.
Well, when you get your rulebook, you can scribble it all out and write your own.
Okay.
So, Kyle, how do they sort of fit into the list? So we've obviously got the lore, but how is Ratkin going to be implemented?
You see, no, you're jumping ahead of me. We're still talking models right now.
He's asking the important questions, but I do want to hear.
But still.
I do want to hear more about the models. So in this release, we've got the Abyssal Dwarves and the Ratkin in as well as part of a booster pack. You said
for the Vanguard kit, yes. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So the best thing about it really is that you're going to start to see that we're looking at new types of models that aren't out there already. Does that make sense? There's obviously nothing for Ratkin out there, so bit by bit,
Berserkers are in.
possibly later in the quarter, somewhere in there. But
if I say it enough, it'll happen.
Yeah. After that Vanguard release, then we'll do what we've been doing, and you'll see the Abyssal Dwarf stuff coming out with a new release for a full army and mega army. Same sort of thing that we're doing. There's also a Hellfang coming out too, so that'll be kind of exciting to see.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What's a Hellfang?
Well, I don't know. What is it?
That's the question.
It's a thing.
He's a wily one.
It is a part of the Abyssal Dwarf lines, I'll tell you that. Some of the names have changed, too. So it's not quite the GW genericification, if that's a word, of names, but we did kind of update some of the names on things. I'll give you one, like from the Night Stalkers, instead of it being Nightmares, they're now called Soul Flayers. So just to give you an example of slight name changes that are in the book here and there for units.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a spicy wordsmith in to upgrade things like brutes and claw shots and such to something a bit more unique and flavorful.
I think those guys are still actually the same.
Damn it.
I didn't realize that Ratkin was going to be the primary topic of conversation here. So.
It always is.
It always is. That's why they got me on the podcast. There wasn't enough Ratkin talk.
The Armies of Panther stuff, like it's we're still working on it to get it ironed out correctly. So all those additional armies are getting tested separately. So we wanted to make sure that the stuff in the main book was completely ready to go, and then now the other stuff is getting its final touches on it. So the rules committee's done a fantastic job so far on everything that they've been suggesting and helping us with. Matt Gilbert and Dave Simmons do pretty much all of the studio design work for King's War, and they've done a really nice job of balancing with the rules council and getting them kind of in a good place so that we know all the different representatives from all around the world, that they can throw things together and get a unified decision process on what's in, what's out, what's changing, what's not. So a lot of people have been kind of timid about the fact that the armies in that second book aren't going to be good enough, and I really think that they'll be happy with the changes for sure.
Excellent. Okay, so we've talked about the Abyssal Dwarfs that are coming out. Is there any sort of, if we look past Q1, what are the other armies that are going to be releasing new units or new kits?
I'm not going to get in any further than that, unfortunately. But that's a good 6 months from now. So
scrub that question off my list.
Yeah, we're playing with the idea of some things that are going to give us the opportunity to create conversion kits. Possibly if you look at the salamander bodies, they could probably have some just extra little bits and bobs added to them to have other conversion kits. You never know. Now with the Northern Alliance clansmen, we've got some pretty legit human models that could be applied to other things too, just with tiny conversions. So I think that that's a decent approach to kind of get more variety with models out of things. And then we could also, even if we sold them as upgrade packs or conversion kits, like I think that there's some potential there. So that's still kind of in the development and guessing process at this time, but that's my guess. You know what I mean? I'm not in the studio. I can't make those decisions, but that's my guess. That's what I would like to see in sales for sure. So hopefully it goes out that way.
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea. I mean, everyone loves a good old fashioned upgrade and conversion kit. You don't get many good ones out there on the market these days from a lot of different model producers. So we're always happy to see them. These Northmen look they're damn sexy. I mean, they're platonically attractive to me. Those figures, love them.
Whoa! Do you need a minute there, Hugh? Or are you good?
No, I'm good. You can cut out the fapping noises in the background if you like,
or I can put them in.
No, don't put them in. Don't put them in. No, they're fantastic figures for sure. So, Armies of Panathor, am I allowed to ask a non-miniature related question that isn't even Ratkin related?
There's not a whole lot that I could answer with it, but you can give a shot. Okay,
I just want to know, you're calling it Uncharted Empires, Armies of Panathor. Where is Panathor as in the fictional universe? Is it sort of a separate continent of some description, or is it a specific place, or is it some other term, some blanket term used for the different Uncharted empires?
So Panathor is just an expanded view on what we knew as Mantica. Mantica is, a smaller portion of the map, and there's a lovely, full page spread of the map in the rule book right towards the start, where you can sort of open it up and see how things have expanded. There's the old world, and then there's the newer world, and the setting is supposedly changed, about 10 years down the road from where we left it in second edition after all the supplements and different expansions. So there's quite a bit of expanded worldviews. And if you've been paying attention to the Kings of War Fanatics cover photo, Matt Gilbert has been updating the photo with a bunch of different maps. So the world is stretched, but it's nowhere near complete where it was, in that giant map from the Elven Libraries, if you've seen that picture before. So it's stretching, but it's not anywhere near completely expanded on yet.
Interesting. So every hardcover copy of the rulebook includes this big map.
Well, the map is just in the book. It's not a pull out or anything like that. There is a map that you can get, nice poster material. I think it's like 32 inches or something like that. It's that A2 material where you could put it on your wall or whatever, and it's got the full map, blown up, and I think that looks really nice.
Oh, I think we should get one of those, lads, even just to have on the table so that we can, stand around it, candle lit, and put out like things to show where our army's going to go and all that jazz.
Now, luckily, I've got one on pre-order, Hugh, so we're all good.
Excellent.
All right, so with the Armies of Panathor, I think off-air you said that it was about 7 weeks from the time of this recording through to when it's going to be hitting the print. And I do believe it was mentioned earlier this week that it was the 2nd of December that it will be out. Is that roughly right?
That's where I think that we're aiming for it. You never know what's going to come up and could possibly, change that date or slow it down, but that's the aim right now. Mm-hmm. And I think that something that a lot of people need to realize too is that when we say the 2nd of December, or if we say the 21st of October, a lot of times what that means is that's when things are going to get released, from the warehouse or into the wild. I've had a ton of conversations with Ronnie to say, hey, we really need to make sure that people know when they can walk into their game stores and pick this up. If we tell them the 21st, they're going to expect they can walk in there and pick it up on the 21st. And so he said he was going to make it as loud and as boisterous as possible for Ronnie, that, if that's the case, they may start shipping them to stores on the 21st, but then you maybe couldn't pick it up until that weekend, the 26th or something like that. So when we say December 2nd for, Panathor, that's probably a similar look where we'll probably get everything out to everywhere in the world that week. And then we would expect you to be able to pick it up sometime that weekend. It usually takes a couple days just to get it all over the world.
Yeah, for sure. And that's also going to align pretty closely with Terrain Crate 2. That's going to be released at the same time from Mantic.
Correct. That's going to be starting in first quarter next year, basically, is when we're looking to get that start going out.
Excellent. That'll be an interesting one to pick up as well, I reckon. But in Australia, things tend to take a little bit longer to get to us, so we're quite used to that. But thanks for keeping the lines of communication open about that, because God knows we've been burned many times before when everyone else gets to play the game for weeks before we get a hold of it, but it sounds like that's not going to be the case.
We hope not.
And that's the thing from, my perspective is I've been a player for long enough, and I've been one that has been sitting there waiting for that book to come and being annoyed by it. And if I ordered it through, RGD Gaming, which is a big online retailer here in the US, I had to wait quite a while in order to get it to me. So I wanted to make sure that if we set an expectation that it's met, that's all.
Makes sense to me.
Okay, so we've heard a little bit about the models that are coming out, which is all very, very exciting. So we're going to dive straight into the 3rd edition rulebook now. So we've seen through your little sneak peeks on Mastercrafted that we're starting to see a lot of keywords. So I was wondering if you can talk through some of the keywords that we've already seen, as well as some of the keywords that we will start to see in the next couple of weeks.
Sure. So I'll preface it with this. There's an idea with 3rd edition that we wanted to sort of future-proof it. And that way that the supplements, the Clash of Kings packs, whatever we end up calling them if it's not that, the things that we come out with can be instantly implemented with the book that gets released right now. Because something that's happened in the past is that the new books have sort of invalidated the use of the original book. You know what I mean? New people that came in 2-3 years down the road didn't need to pick up the original rule book because it was either free online or, otherwise they could get most of the information from the Clash of Kings pack, and then everything in the main book was just completely pointless. So we wanted to future-proof the main book so that it had a lot more value going for years to come, as opposed to just a 1 year and then you got to buy a new book. Keywords and the spellcasting tiers are 2 of the best examples from 3rd edition that I can give you that would say how that's going to happen. So keywords have an instant impact on the game right now, but not all keywords have an instant impact on the game, if that makes sense. So you'll see several keywords listed under each unit, or at least a lot of times there's several keywords. And the best way I can explain it is that those keywords are going to be used so that certain abilities or effects are going to apply to units that have that keyword. I saw one comment actually on my videos that said they were afraid that, Kings of War would turn into like Synergy Hammer, where you had to, put stuff together to be effective. And that's really not the case. It just kind of gives you some nice little bonuses by taking advantage of some of the keywords. In the Undead video, I showed off the zombies getting vicious with an aura from the Necromancer. In the Empire Dust video that just came out, there's I forget the name of the ability, but the Pharaoh essentially can give mummies elite when he's around him. So that's how it's going to work. It's essentially just a way for things to go together. If we come up with formations again in the future, it's going to be a way to say that, take these units with these keyword and then they all get this benefit. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
So does that mean there's no formations?
Well, there's not initially, but there could be at some point. Right now in 3rd edition, formations that are coming out in the main rulebook.
Right.
Okay, fair enough. No, I'm familiar with this kind of concept. I think a lot of listeners will be with various other games they've played, like, for example, like in the Magic card game that we all probably know and love. You have like your creature types where most of the time they don't mean anything, but then sometimes there'll be an effect which affects all beasts or zombies or soldiers or what have you. And, that just sort of makes that an interesting, fun, and sometimes thematic synergistic effect without necessarily being like what it's all about.
Sounds like a good change or addition.
Yeah. You mentioned Berserker being something you were looking forward to in the Abyssal Dwarfs. Like if there's a special rule that is going to apply to Berserkers, they're probably going to, put that on every type of unit that could get it. So I know like with the dwarves, that's something that is currently in play. So it same sort of thing. There are some keywords that I think are just thrown in just for future use. They don't have a single, purpose right now. You'll see certain things like on the Orc War Drum, it has the keyword shrine, and that could be just purely a nod to what it's supposed to be, and in the future, if we wanted to tie something to it, we could say, any rules changes that need to apply to units that have the keyword, then we know that keyword applies, book wide. Mm-hmm. So if we wanted to update like the Idol of Shobik or something like that, and it also has the keyword shrine, then we know, hey, that applies to everything.
Right.
Okay. And you've sort of started to mention their spellcasting tiers. So can you talk through that at all?
Spellcasting tiers are just listed next to the unit right now, and they have no use currently in 3rd edition. So it's not anything that is in the book right now, but it's going to be a point of reference for anything that we decide to do in future supplements. So a lot of people were looking forward to, faction-specific spells and things like that. Right now, everything is still generic as it is in 2nd edition, so all the spells are available to everyone, essentially. One major change with spell options is that the spells that units can take are only available in their profile. So currently, some of the legendaries or something like that, they could swap them out, but right now, if a unit doesn't have the spell listed in their profile, they can't take it.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense to have it all convenient there in one place. Yeah, that's definitely an exciting prospect in future to get some unique spells for various Raccoon armies or even other armies if necessary. But I'm interested to hear as well, because I got excited for it in your Undead video, where you talk briefly about Duelist, because the vampires had Duelist. And I'm actually a bit keen on Undead at the minute. So I was interested to know what that does.
So Duelist is going to be very familiar to a lot of people. When attacking individuals, it doubles their number of attacks.
Oh, awesome. Like the Blade does now, the
Yep.
the Blade of Misery or something along those lines.
Mournful Blade.
Right, but this is just a special rule now.
Oh,
Okay.
Cool. Yes, I like that.
So you would think the assassins have that, surely.
That'd be a good assumption, yeah.
No, that would make them okay. So they've got to not have it then.
No, that's a really cool rule. I do like that. It makes them a bit more like, hardcore character. Well, duelist specialist is probably the right word for it. That's gives them that character killer role, which doesn't really exist much at the moment. Not many figures have anything quite like that in 2nd ed.
Well, with the changes to those auras and things like that, characters are going to have a bigger support role, and you're probably going to want to take them out pretty effectively. So having a unit in your army that has the duelist special rule would probably be a pretty handy thing.
I like it. All right.
So, hypothetically, what sort of armies would have the duelist rule?
Any of the characters essentially that have lots of the combat capabilities. We saw it on vampires. I'm fairly certain off the top of my head that if you have any type of an assassin, special character, they're going to have it. I feel like somewhere, and I'm stretching on this when I say this from memory, I feel like I saw a unit had it somewhere.
Ooh, that's spicy.
Again, don't completely quote me on that, but that's I feel like from memory that was the case. Something like the Pharaoh does not have it, but the vampire did. Lady Alona does, but someone like Morgoth does not.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll find it in the armies as a tool. I don't think it's going to be everywhere, but with the way that you have to choose your heroes and which ones you actually bring to the table, is it going to be worthwhile to do it? I'll tell you that if you look at like what's her name, the Malti Busu from Abyssals, or Basuzu, I call him Susan.
Bessie.
One of them has duelist and one of them does not. But it just depends on how you would use them. And then I'll also say that one of them has mighty and then one of them does not. So they have different roles. So you got to kind of pay attention to what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, so it sounds like really going back to the fundamentals of list generation and saying, well, I need this character to be this role, therefore they must have this rule.
Right.
Terrific.
Cool. Taking specialists makes sense. And
It does.
look, Kyle, I don't know if it's out of line to ask you, but look, I'm here to ask the hard-hitting journalist questions. I'm not here to lick stamps. And so I need to let you know that right now, as my love for Kings of War is great and forever growing. However, I don't like the Snake Eyes rule, Kyle.
Okay. I think a lot of people are probably in the same boat as you are.
Yep.
So is there any change to this rule in 3rd edition?
There is. Ooh. So when you test mirror currently, if you roll either double sixes or double ones, there's something that happens, and that's still the case in 3rd edition.
Mm-hmm.
Fearless units, are kind of an exception to this, as they have been in 2nd. But on a double six right now, you still get the we are doomed result. So if you roll that result and they still get a wavering result, so that's exactly the same as it is, unless they're fearless, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And then for Snake Eyes, there's essentially two things in how that it works. So if you roll Snake Eyes on a nerf test, they still will be able to fight on with a steady result. So they're not wavered, but they are then what's called devastated now. So devastated is a new special rule because it's not an instantaneous devastated. They have to, if their damage is over their actual route limit, then they become devastated. Okay, so devastated units half their attacks, their unit strength, and all their spell and stat values rounding down.
Okay, so it's a big nerf for them.
Interesting.
It's still annoying that the unit's still there, but at least they're not going to punch back with full force like they used to.
So devastated units are not also wavered. They're just halved in effectiveness.
Correct.
Interesting.
Step in the right direction. We'll see how it plays out.
The real judge is Spoon. Obviously, Spoon had a tough tournament about 10 months ago, I think, and he hasn't played a game of Kings of War since, all because of this Snake Eyes. So we'll put it to him and we'll see where he ends up.
Yep, see where he lands.
So just double ones, if you wouldn't have gone over their route limit anyway, it's still, it's still womp, womp, womp.
Yeah.
But if their damage, they're at max damage and then you roll snakes, then that's when we really hate it anyway. That's when they have the devastated result applied to them.
Yeah, because if you roll double ones on a nerve roll where you weren't necessarily going to break them anyway, that's just a poor roll. While when you do everything right and thump them into next week, and then they still just sort of stubbornly stick around, and then you get flanked. That's when the pain is really felt severely. But I like that at least the unit is hamstrung somewhat. Although I do wonder if you wouldn't just immediately shoot it off later on in the game and the damage is already done. But I guess it depends on the game.
And it does depend on the scenario and everything like that. I think you mentioned there that the unit strength gets reduced as well.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
So imagine that turn 6, turn 7. Is there a turn 7, Kyle?
Yes, that's still in there.
Okay. That's another one. Tick off that list. All right. What about the scenarios? I have talked to you off air about the scenarios, and I know that you can't go into all the intricate details, but are you able to tell us at a high level more things like what sort? Are they more tokens? I know that there's bluff tokens now. Are you able to talk about any of that with us?
Yeah, so the scenarios, a lot of them are still going to be familiar. I'd say at least half of them are ones that we're already routinely playing, and it's totally okay. I think that a lot of people find that these scenarios are generally pretty balanced, and that makes it nice. But there are some new ones that introduce, like you said, the bluff counters. There are now ways that you're going to use more loot tokens. I don't know if you've noticed, but in our I forget the name of the kit already, but it's essentially the battlefield tokens and objectives, things that we're releasing for 3rd edition. There are 10 loot tokens in there as well. So I'll hint to you that there could be an instance where you would need all of those. There's also the bluff counters, which they're kind of cool. Essentially, what it is it's a counter that has a number on one side and it's blank on the other. And when you go to place out your objectives that you control as a player, then you can essentially bluff what point values you're putting where, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Bit of bait and switch in the deployment phase, or the counter putting out phase, whatever that is.
Yeah, so there's going to be some that are marked with 0 points. There's going to be some with 1 or 2. So you know what you're going to have, but you're place them down on the board. You could put one that you are bluffing as a very critical point on the field and literally is 0 VP.
That's sneaky. I like that.
That is.
Like a bit of bluffing in there as well. And then you're kind of forced to cover all the different objectives with your army as well and spread out a bit because you don't know which one's going to be the red herring.
Right.
So lots of changes in scenarios. Do we have a similar number to before or that are all drastically different? Or?
Yeah, there are 12.
Okay. So I did try and get out what the phalanx rule. I know that you've talked about it a hell of a lot. I'm still going to ask on air, what is it? Are you able to talk to me about anything? Is it just amazing? I know that that's all you've mentioned previously.
So I'll leave it for speculation. How about that? I'll give you a little bit and then leave speculation.
Ooh.
It still functions the same way that it does now, where if a unit is charged from, in the front arc, they lose their Thunderous Charge special rule. Mm-hmm. That's the same. But there is a new paragraph that says, in addition, there are 3 types of units that are also affected by a negative modifier, an additional negative modifier, I'll say.
Ooh.
So if you think about, what giant spear tips would possibly do to impede certain types of units, from charging them in the front, essentially.
Interesting.
So yeah, speculate away.
Okay.
So much gossip. So we've seen your most recent video on the Empire of Dust, which was, juicy indeed. Do you know what you're going to be doing next, what you're covering next in your gossip, videos?
Yeah, I essentially have it planned out at this point. I try to use the voting from the first couple of videos to get an idea of what was the most desired things. I mean, if it was up to me, I would have put out like Northern Alliance and Night Stalkers right away, but I'm trying to appeal to the community as much as possible. I've already filmed Orcs, which is coming out actually as of tomorrow. Today is the 11th of September, so it's going to come out tomorrow on Thursday. Jesse, I am waiting on. He just is a good distance for me. He's a 3-hour drive away, so it's not always something that he can come up and film. So it's going to be probably him standing in front of a brick wall at school just ranting about ogres, which will be delightfully entertaining. I'm also going to let him break the first new magic item in that video for a very special reason. So I'll leave that at that. If he can get that to me this weekend, that would be great. And then I'll probably post that next Tuesday. So that would be Ogres on the 17th of September, which for you guys, I think is probably a slightly different timeline, but
Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday. And then after that, it would be, I think I'm going into Abyssals because there's been a lot that's already been teased with them. Like we literally showed, I think the full first page of their army section at one point with that big not final over top of it. So wanted to kind of get them out of the way. And then we'll probably go into Dwarves, Abyssal Dwarves, Elves, Trident Realm, Nature, Goblins, that kind of thing. I think I'll save Night Stalkers and Northern Alliance probably for last, actually, just because they're the title armies in the 2-player starter set, and Northern Alliance is just they're a truck of ice. I'll put it that way. It's just a Mack truck of ice.
Well, that sounds cool. And will you be spoiling any of the races for the following book, like between the books release or something like that?
If I do, it'll be closer to the actual book release, at the end of October. So we're going to do the same thing with the armies in Panathor, probably in November leading up to the December release. So same kind of thing where I go over them. It'll be 2, maybe even 3 weeks because it's a shorter time frame to preview and tease those guys too.
Yeah, you have to expect that the Rules Council will keep, their Ratkin secrets close to their chest for the time being. I heard that there were 13 members of the Rules Council. Is that true?
I don't think that's the actual number. No.
Oh well.
All right. So it sounds like you're going to keep a lot of cards very close to your chest still, Kyle, which I do very much respect. And a big call out to all the people on the rule committee over this book and the next book as well. So that's a massive effort to those guys as well. Any closing thoughts from you, Benson or Hugh?
It's late.
Not really. It's late. It's nearly 1:00 in the morning here, and I'm sure we're keen to head to bed soon and think happy dreams.
I'm keen for 3rd edition. That's what I am.
Bloody oath, me too. I'm charged now. I'm full of Rockstar juice and Ratkin dreams, and even undead dreams now that my vampires are back. They can flap around murdering fools. I'm going to be pretty keen on that too. So, yeah, it's exciting times to be alive in the Mantic world.
Yeah. So before I let you go, we've got a Clash of Kings 2020, so in January, that's on our Australia Day weekend in Canberra, our nation's capital. Will we see Ronnie Renton there?
That's a good question. I'll see if we can't get him over. I know that we're trying to push it for those big events. If you saw what's going on with the UK Clash of Kings, like they're throwing a party. They're giving away all kinds of free stuff and good stuff. So I know that we're really trying to celebrate and make these events big. If you don't see him, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't send somebody. I've got a passport now, so maybe he'll send me. You never know.
Yeah, if we're lucky. I mean, it's our biggest event, of course, and even outside of the Kings of War crowd itself, it's several thousand people at the convention. So it's probably a good opportunity to spruik some stuff while we play some games.
Yeah, to put that in perspective for, obviously, I think it's Martin that's the marketing guru over that side. So,
yes.
Yeah, we don't see anything Mantic at CanCon, which, as Hugh said, is thousands of people that are going in and out of the doors. We just don't see anything there at the moment. I know that they are going to be putting on a couple of little demonstrations this year, so that's pretty exciting as well. But closing statements there. Clash of Kings 2020. Get to CanCon. It's Australia Day weekend. I think the tickets even open in October. We want to get in those sales nice and quickly because if we don't, all the space will sell out very rapidly.
Indeed, and not long after third edition's release in start of December, end of October, is the Australian Masters as well. So you can look forward to hearing if any of us noobs make it.
Yeah, that's it. I think as it stands right now, Hugh, you and I may be attending.
Ooh, maybe we can dodge each other for the whole event as usual.
Is that even possible in the Masters?
I don't know.
All right. Well, we'll probably finish it up there. Thank you very much, Kyle. Irrespective of us pronouncing your name incorrectly, appreciate you jumping in on your, what is it, Thursday morning? Wednesday morning?
Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning, there we go. So appreciate you coming on, mate, and drip feeding us all this information as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.
Appreciate it, Carl. Laters.
And thank you to the listeners for hanging about. We will see you soon.
See you guys.
Yeah, direct misfire blowing up the game. Talking many war games is our aim. Rule books to advice, we cover it all. With the best tactics, we never fall. Bend some spoon and sell liquor in the mix. Math hammer doesn't work, it's a trick. Follow along, stay up to date. Comment, like, subscribe today. Come check us out on Facebook and Twitter at Direct Misfire. If you want to shoot us an email, directmisfire@gmail.com.
So the new armies in Panathor are actually going to be there's also going to be something with, and then all we'll have left is the that are going to be done with. It's really not that big of a deal.